A feckless man, an irresponsible individual who has run up debts and sold his own apartment and therefore is forced to live in a rented place. A pathological liar and glutton who in school was nicknamed Snake Oil. That is exactly how the scientist Satanyan, also known by the nickname Sat, describes his classmate Arakel, whom their friends simply call Gansh. Sat's supervisor, the professor, is delighted at Sat's choice of candidate and asks him to invite the guy to a meeting the next morning. Meanwhile, the unsuspecting Gansh is enjoying some intimate time with a beautiful girl who reminds him that he promised her a park and some ice cream. Just then, Gansh's landlady, Margarita, rings the doorbell. She hasn't been able to collect rent from him for a couple of months. Gansh immediately switches to loving fiancé mode and ushers her into the living room while his casual date slips out unnoticed. Once they are alone, Margarita declares that if he doesn't pay within a week, he may as well vacate the apartment. However, Gansh reassures her he will definitely pay because he plans to marry the daughter of a famous and wealthy man. Later, Gansh and his fiancée Milena are out having fun at a restaurant, unaware that his creditor Razmik is watching. Gansh is forced to leave Milena and head to the restroom, where he's ambushed and told to repay what he owes. Gansh promises to give back everything as soon as he marries the daughter of well-known entrepreneur Shahin. They let him go. Gansh immediately calls his assistant to say that some people are coming today to look at his cafe karaoke, which he hopes to sell for a good sum. To that end, he has invited performers to pose as patrons, giving the impression that the karaoke bar is wildly popular and profitable. Soon after, he arrives at the karaoke bar and explains the assignment to the hired extras, urging them to create a lively picture of regular customers. Eventually, the potential buyer shows up, fully aware of Gansh's debts. Despite Gansh's efforts to dupe him, one of the extras accidentally reveals the truth. The buyer leaves. Sometime later, Gansh is taken to a secret laboratory where Tut explains that, under the professor's guidance, they have created a unique female robot unlike anything else in the world. Rosalie's body is identical to a human's, meaning she can become indistinguishable from real people. However, to launch the final stage of humanization, the android must experience the entire palette of human emotions. Gansh is required to live with her for 1 month while they test her. He is shown the android, and the professor promises that once she's upgraded, she will be more beautiful than any real woman. On top of that, Gansh will receive a very substantial payment for participating in the experiment. Nevertheless, Gansh refuses, saying he dislikes the robot, and besides, he's getting married in a month. The professor asks Sat to find a different test subject, but Sat insists that Gansh, who attracts trouble and adventures like a magnet, provides the ideal conditions for hormone synthesis. Knowing Gansh, he believes Gansh will come back. Meanwhile, Gansh meets his fiancée's father, Shahin, who divides people into predators and herbivores. Gansh claims he might be some kind of hybrid, but Shahin thinks he's a rabbit, quick to wriggle out of any scrape. He had a hard time accepting his daughter's choice, but Milena announced they are in love. So this groom has to pay for Milena's wedding dress and be a faithful husband. Otherwise, he'll face severe consequences. Gansh calls Sat and agrees to the experiment on one condition. Rosalie's specs must meet his preferences. Describing what he wants her to look like, Gansh steps into the elevator, where his neighbor is also riding. Forced to be evasive, he compares Rosalie to a car. The neighbor advises him to go electric. Later, he heads to the karaoke bar to sign a non-disclosure agreement with Sat, since Sat knows some investors from Pakistan are already interested in buying Rosalie, who is worth millions. Gansh immediately suggests they sell Rosalie themselves. At that moment, a young woman comes in. Seeing her, Gansh assumes she must be the Rosalie specially altered to his specifications. He rushes to give her flowers, but quickly notices she doesn't match his requests and criticizes her chest and backside. The beauty responds by punching him where it hurts. Sat apologizes to the woman and explains to Gansh that he's made a mistake. And then the real Rosalie appears. Gansh introduces himself by dancing, which impresses everyone. The professor, watching on camera, comments on Snake Oil's surprising grace. That evening, Gansh brings Rosalie to his place. She immediately tidies up. Then she serves him a delicious meal, after which he tries to test her womanly attributes, only to find out that the robot hasn't been programmed in the finer points of intimate relations. Offended, Gansh calls Sat, who admits that Rosalie's intimate functionality hasn't been activated because the man must see her as a living being. Only then will she reach a new level. He has to court her like a real woman. Gansh tries his best to charm Rosalie, but she's already lain down and switched off. Early the next morning, Gansh heads to the bridal salon to pick out Milena's dress, but Razmik intercepts him outside, still awaiting his money. Momentarily struck by Milena's beauty, Razmik then offers to help design her look. Meanwhile, Rosalie is in the elevator with Margarita and Gansh's neighbor. At the salon, Razmik admires Milena, while Margarita calls Ganj, scolding him for subletting his apartment. Realizing who she's talking about, Ganj asks Razmik to return the loaned funds, and not wanting trouble in front of Milena, Razmik hands over a small amount. Ganj rushes home, persuades Margarita to hold on a bit longer, and passes Rosalie off as his fiancée, stunning Margarita that he's managed to snag such a beauty. Right then, Sat calls Ganj and asks him to take Rosalie out somewhere so they can observe how she interacts with people. Meanwhile, Milena sends Ganj an enthusiastic message about his designer Razmik, whom she admires for his creativity. She now wants to discuss the wedding decor with him and asks her fiancé to transfer the money for her dress. At the same time, the elevator arrives on their floor, and Ganj is upset to see Rosalie. She explains that she went grocery shopping and shows him a card given to her by the lab. Ganj is delighted. He hurries to the store and buys her a bouquet, explaining that men give flowers as a show of affection. Rosalie inhales their scent and suddenly announces that her vestibular microchip is spinning. The lab picks this up as the first sign of synthetic happiness hormone, dopamine, triggered by the flowers. Admittedly, they were purchased with her own card. Ganj then takes Rosalie to his karaoke bar, introducing her to a friend and the friend's girlfriend and declaring her his fiancée. Hearing the friend works in finance, Rosalie delves into discussing the cryptocurrency market, impressing everyone with her knowledge. When the girlfriend mentions her love of Japanese poetry, Rosalie begins reciting Japanese verses. Ganj claims she studied in Tokyo. The friend bluntly asks Ganj how a woman like that could ever notice him. In his view, Ganj is a cheat with debts and a snoring habit. Hardly someone a beautiful woman would fall for. Maybe her family is planning something, like devouring him. They leave, but Ganj and Rosalie aren't bothered, as they're quite content in each other's company. Razmik then appears, appalled that Ganj seems to be cheating on Milena. Ganj says Rosalie is just his singer. Unconvinced, Razmik challenges him, so Rosalie goes on stage and performs a gorgeous love song. Razmik starts grilling Ganj about his relationship with Milena, explaining he wants to help decorate the wedding hall and so needs to know the bride well. But Ganj is mesmerized by Rosalie's singing and can't form a coherent response. Razmik leaves without catching Ganj in a lie. Later, Ganj and Rosalie stroll around the city. Rosalie laughs at his jokes and takes delight in simple things. At home, Rosalie offers Ganj a Japanese dinner and asks why he tells lies. She doesn't see the point. He insists this is how people cope with life's complexities. Rosalie believes the world is ruled by mathematics, which doesn't allow for lies. Ganj tries illustrating his point by talking about flipping cars for profit, but Rosalie quickly spots any dishonesty, proving that everything can be calculated. He befuddles her with a multitude of made-up motives. Rosalie realizes that in the human world, anyone can deceive her at any moment and begs him to teach her how to detect lies. Just then, the professor learns that Rosalie has downloaded books on poker and bluffing. He's thrilled by this interesting twist, hoping it will speed up the hormone synthesis. Meanwhile, Ganj teaches her a card game, and she soon starts beating him. When he learns she's got a 98% chance of winning, Ganj suggests she change clothes. The researchers notice she's searching for directions to a casino. Worried she might become a gambling addict and pawn off the entire lab, they decide to activate her intimate relationship function. Immediately, Rosalie orders Ganj to the bedroom, and he forgets everything else. For hours, the neighbors hear telltale sounds. When Ganj finally comes out, he calls Sat, begging him to dial down the android's passion. But once that's done, Rosalie remembers the plans they'd made. They head to the casino, where she easily cleans everyone out, causing both admiration and envy. On the way home, Ganj admits that it's the first time in his life others have envied him for being with such a stunning woman. He kisses her. However, back at Ganj's place, Shahin is waiting. He's heard that his future son-in-law was in a casino with another woman. Ganj lies, saying Rosalie is his sister, who just flew in from the US. Rosalie instantly switches to English, and Shahin buys it. Once home, Ganj tells Rosalie about his plans to get married. Suddenly, she becomes sad and even says she wants to hit him. The scientist notes she's producing all the necessary hormones, meaning she's actually jealous. Then, to everyone's surprise, and despite having her intimate function switched off, Rosalie leads Ganj to the bedroom. She really has become a woman. Meanwhile, Ganj finds Razmik and his bodyguard waiting in his living room. Having learned of Ganj's casino winnings, the creditor has come for the money. He's also sure Ganj is cheating and demands that he speak honestly with Milena. The next day, Shahin spots Razmik with Milena on his lawn, observing the new fiancé's business acumen. At the same time, Ganj brings breakfast to Rosalie when Shahin calls, asking Ganj to come downstairs for a chat. He confesses he really liked Ganj's sister and wants a proper introduction. Ganj is horrified, but Shahin won't listen and demands that he bring her to his restaurant that evening. Ganj decides to send Rosalie back to the lab, but she refuses to leave, promising she'll handle the situation. That evening, they meet at the restaurant. While Rosalie and Shahin talk about wine, Gansh notices Milena and Razmik and goes over to their table. Meanwhile, Rosalie reminds Shahin of his late wife. Gansh tries to start an argument with Milena. Rosalie advises Shahin not to look for the most beautiful woman, but for the one with the kindest soul. During this, Razmik humiliates Gansh, suggesting he's unfaithful. Gansh leaves to rejoin Rosalie, who admits she told Shahin the truth. Back home, Shahin thinks about his late wife when Milena arrives and confesses she's fallen for someone else. In the lab, the scientists observe Rosalie producing melatonin, causing her to fall asleep naturally. The professor orders them to bring her back in, since their task is complete. The next morning, Gansh pays off his debts and amicably parts ways with Milena. Shahin visits the karaoke bar to tell Gansh there won't be a wedding. Unexpectedly, he meets a singer there and instantly falls in love. Gansh, meanwhile, buys flowers and rushes home, only to find that Rosalie is gone. He calls the lab, and Sat tells him they've taken the robot back. Gansh begs for one last meeting, asking Rosalie to come in a white dress. They meet in a garden, where Gansh suggests they run away together. She refuses, pointing out that she can never be a truly human woman and can't bear him a child. Tears suddenly fall from the android's eyes, and Gansh says there's nothing more real than that. Suddenly, she shuts down. It turns out Sat secretly sold Rosalie, and her buyers have arrived. Gansh tries to protect her when Razmik and his guard appear to announce his marriage to Milena. Realizing what's happening, Gansh and Rosalie fight back. Gansh rushes toward Milena, but is caught by the buyers. Seeing this, Rosalie reactivates and joins the fray. Sat aims a gun at Gansh. Rosalie shields him, taking the bullets in her back. At that moment, the police burst into the garden, arresting everyone. Time passes. Sat is in prison. Shahin is seeing the singer. Milena chooses a wedding dress with Razmik. The scientists activate a new robot. Meanwhile, Gansh is taking Rosalie, who's about to become a mother, to the hospital. Along the way, he's on the phone with the professor, insisting on the child's name, completely oblivious to the shocked paramedic who has just realized this mom-to-be is an android. A lighthearted comedy that helps you escape daily worries. After all, if a rational robot can fall in love with a human being, then surely a desperate liar and scoundrel, upon falling in love, can turn into a genuine hero.